Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith. I'm a proud member of the Cathedral Prep class of 2011 and I have the pleasure here of working at Prep in our Advancement and Alumni Relations office. Welcome to episode number 103 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. We are excited to welcome Dan Doyle on as a guest. Dan graduated from Cathedral Prep in 1979. And his career path is both unique and impressive, combining technical expertise, entrepreneurship, and storytelling. Dan studied geology at the University of Pittsburgh and began his career in the oil industry in Texas. After experiencing a downturn in the industry, he made a unique pivot and pursued filmmaking at NYU's Graduate Film School before ultimately returning to the energy sector. He now serves as president of Reliance Well Services, a hydraulic fracturing company operating in the Appalachian and Illinois basins, and is also president of Arena Resources, an oil and gas company active in Wyoming's Powder River Basin. Dan is also the author of the memoir of Roughnecks Riches, where he reflects on building a company during the rise of the U.S. energy boom, along with the challenges, risks, and lessons that came with it. His story is not just about business success, but also about navigating change, persevering through uncertainty, and growing as a leader along the way. Dan resides here in Erie, Pennsylvania with his wife and two daughters who are juniors here at Cathedral Prep. And Dan, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Nice to be here.
Well, I tell you what, I put in there what unique inability to storytell. I have to right away start off with the book. What a story. Oh my gosh. Congratulations on a great, well-written book.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah. I saw you had released the book, a few months back, picked up a copy. I just finished it, leading up to this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such an amazing story. I think you were saying before we started recording. It covers about a 2-year time frame, correct?
About that, yeah. 2008, middle of 2008, just before the global financial meltdown, Great Recession, whatever we call it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's called your memoir, but it's really focusing on those 2 years starting Reliance Well Services.
Right.
Oh my gosh, the amount of obstacles you had to overcome, business partners, the amount of laughs I had reading the story too. I mean, it was so well written
at the time.
Yeah.
But it is now.
It's all about reflection, right?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, seriously, it's such a great read, and to anybody listening, I highly recommend picking it up. If you're somebody from the alumni community, certainly to support Dan. But if you're somebody who really enjoys a good book about business and entrepreneurship, this one's right up the top of the scale of books I've read.
Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So somewhere I always like to start when recording the podcast episodes is reflecting on your time at Prep. Yeah. And we'll get into the book a little bit later. But in regards to Prep, when you look back at, Dan Doyle and middle school ages and the decision to attend Cathedral Prep, was there any other choice or was that always where you were going?
That's where we were going. I'm one of 7 kids, and all 4 of us boys went to Prep, and 3 of us were here at the same time. Then my 2 older brothers left, and there was my brother and I were here at the same time. And then my sisters actually didn't go to Villa; they went to Mercyhurst. So,
yeah.
I've been around Prep a long time.
Yeah. Father Dollinger, he was the headmaster.
Father Dollinger and Father Swoger were tough. I mean, they kind of just ran it themselves, and you just didn't mess with them, And Dollinger was really hardcore. He was kind of like as I was telling you, he would tell people on snow days, if he could get to school, you could get to school. And, he lived 4 steps away from school. And Swoger was the one you had to watch out for. I think he was the disciplinarian. And really, it was kind of just those 2. And at the time, I mean, my class, I started about 330-ish kids, 320, whatever it was. Ended quite a ways down from that because a lot of kids got thrown out or left. But still in the 200s, and it was all boys. So I guess you would say there's probably 1,200 kids here back then, all boys, and so those guys they kept it in line.
Yeah. So it was part of the family, go to Prep. That was part of that decision. Your brothers were there and whatnot.
Yeah.
A lot of boys in the building, to your point, Dollinger and Swonger just like running the place and trying to keep order, and sounds like they did keep order.
I think they kept really good order. because back then, the paddles would come out, and nobody, they didn't seem to be. I never got paddled. Got paddled in 8th grade. A funny story. I went to St. Pete's. We were in public schools, and then my parents moved us to St. Pete's, and I was getting paddled with another guy who went to prep for a brief period of time. And I got paddled by the nun. I can't remember her name, little redheaded, sweet lady, nun. And, I stepped away. It didn't really hurt. And the guy I was with got paddled. And when she hit him, he pretended that his hand slipped off the desk. And he pushed everything off her desk onto the floor. And his name was Joe. I won't give his last name, but a really smart guy too. But he was a little devious.
Yeah.
But they kept you in line.
Yeah. There was no straying too far off of what they expected.
Yeah. You did what they wanted. Yeah.
And when you were there, what are some of the things when you reflect back your time at prep? Certain memories or activities, sports you're a part of. What sort of sticks out to you about your prep experience?
Jimmy, I would love to say when I went to prep, I was paying attention. I would love to say that, but I went. I was one of 7 kids. We're all about a year apart. Wonderful parents, but my little brother and I, who is the only one still in Erie with here. But we'll kid around how we kind of slipped through the cracks. There wasn't an enormous amount of supervision. So, as I was telling you earlier, I'll tell the story again. I came up with this idea that I wasn't going to do anything in religion class. Yeah. I just was going to, and I told that to the nun one time. I'm like, hey, if I flunk this, you don't have to go to summer school if you flunk religion. So I'll just do what I want. Anyways, the next day on the school announcements, Father Dollinger, booming across the PA, says anybody that flunks religion will be at summer school with everybody else. I'm like, oh man, no, I can't do that. So I had to, kind of clean it up. But anyways, I was on the wrestling team for a little bit. I found out that Peak and Peak had a ski racing team, and I really liked that. It was, not a school sport, of course, but so I stopped wrestling and did that instead. But there were some great wrestlers at the time. Jack Bakevich was the coach, and he was a tough guy too, and but what a great guy with great memories, and he was again hardcore. Sorry to use that, but I told him, Mr. Bakevich, I can ski race, so I'm not going to wrestle. He's like, what? He used to talk real kind of staccato, and he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, I'm going to ski race. And he's, what are you talking about? And his brother, Bill, who coached the heavyweights, Jack was the lightweights, Bill was standing there with him, and Jack said to Bill, flunk him, because I had Bill for biology. And Bill goes, okay. I actually got an A in Bill's class. I remember doing an extra credit assignment. But it was kind of funny. We were wrestling one time, and Mr. Bakevich was on top, and he did a crossface on me, and he chipped my front tooth. It wasn't a bad chip, but it fell out and hit the mat. I'm like, Mr. Bakevich, my front tooth, and he goes, put it back in, keep wrestling. So it was definitely different times,
Definitely different times.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the type of thing that Dan Doyle needed to keep the tracks on the right path.
Yeah, I won't say I didn't need it. I needed it. Yeah, really did. Yeah.
And probably the whole school back then really did. Sound like 1,200 boys.
I think so. I'm sitting in this. I've never been in here. What do you call this building?
This is the old headmaster's house. This is where Dollinger lived.
Okay, so I remember I was a freshman and there was a senior, and I think he was a track runner. I remember he scaled these block walls, and he got pretty high up until somebody, probably Swoger, came out and started yelling at him. But he was climbing the rock walls, and it was always something stupid like that, But generally pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of shenanigans.
Yeah, it was, but a lot of fun.
So, how did prep help prepare you for the next chapter in your career?
Well, I think it kind of straightened me out. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm a junior and I still haven't picked up books and I'm, rebellious and, typical. And, it's like, okay, where are you going to college? And I hadn't really thought about it, and I ended up going to Pitt, University of Pittsburgh. And, I didn't know what to do. I just screwing around, taking English classes, economics classes. Back then, it was a little cheaper, so you didn't have to know exactly what you're going to do. That's done, I think, for the most part. And it really wasn't until I found geology that I really started enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And once I found that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It sounds like you had a real good time at Prep. Got some good discipline, some good head straight knowledge. Yeah.
It's funny, I still have some really great friends from Prep. Really just lifelong, closest friend, and friends. And anyways, and then, you see people around here and there for whatever reason. And it's, it's like old family, because you grew up together and you always share that. And so that's important. I think that probably would be at any school, but at Prep, I can only speak to that. And maybe more so at Prep too, really.
Yeah.
But it's just it's kind of extraordinary. It's great to see those guys, and we're all older now, but we see them out, and I get a kick out of it.
Sounds like when you guys are together, it feels just like you're right back at Prep together.
Yeah, it does. I was at my last reunion, and I frack wells, and a friend of mine, he's a doctor, Joe. I won't say your last name. I'll make sure you get this. And he showed up at the reunion, like swearing at me because I was a fracker. And I'm standing there next to Kevin Smith, and he's like, what's going on? I go, I don't know. But I still love him.
Yeah, of
you know
course.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter,
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's part of the brotherhood, we got to razz each other. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to have thick skin around here.
And truth though, this wouldn't be on razzing, but it's okay. It's okay.
It's all right. We'll forgive him.
Yeah, it's fine. He's a good guy.
So after your years at Prep, as you mentioned, you went down to Pitt and you were doing geology, and you also were doing filmmaking, and there's a whole bunch of different things you did. Now you're leading companies in the energy sector.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy times.
So for the listener who maybe hasn't read your book yet, doesn't know much about Dan Doyle, can you kind of fill in some gaps for us about how you kind of got down this track and where you're at, where you're today? Just the highlights.
Yeah, I'll back it up. My dad kind of was an entrepreneurial guy, and he was in the construction industry here. He had a really great friend, Norby Hardner. And if you go to St. Vincent Hospital, you'll see the Hardner wing. Sister Margaret Ann Hardner was his sister. And I grew up around Norby. He was always over. Norby didn't have kids, so we became kind of his family. And him and my dad wasn't he did well, but 7 kids. But they decided they wanted to drill an oil well. And they were going to do it themselves. And so they actually got together with a guy, you just had him on, I caught it, Jeff Johnson.
Yeah.
What would be his, I guess, grandfather was also kind of messing around oil and gas, and they made a deal with him. Anyways, they drilled a well, and this is going on, and I'm in college down in Pittsburgh, and it's like, wow. So I would come up every weekend, and back then, families had station wagons, and all of us would pile in the station wagon with Norby's dog and our dog, everything fogged out, and we'd go up and mess around on the well.
Yeah.
And one day, I don't know why, there's a thing called a stuffing box, and for some reason, Norby, who was an engineer, wanted to tighten it with a big 20-inch crescent wrench. And my brother Dave was helping him, and Dave, of course, just a kid, lets go of his side, and it swings and hits Norby in the arm and breaks his arm.
Oh my gosh!
Anyways, he had to wear a cast, or maybe it was a sprain, but it was you had to wear a cast. And but they did it. And, it didn't really work out that well, but they did it. But it kind of hooked me, and I thought, wow, this is like treasure hunting. This is great. And so I changed all my classes and at Pitt, and then I had to do a sprint because I was up here painting houses with another prepster, Joe Nolan, and during the summers, and we had to take these chemistry and physics, so I did them again.
Yeah.
So it kind of helped me catch up. But so I did that and got out of school, and I was in such a race, run, that I wanted to, go drill my own wells, just like my father had done. So I went all over the country. So I set myself up as a securities company, NASD registered broker-dealer, doing these old Reg D programs that used to be popular at the time. And actually some people, I don't know why, but they invested. I was just a little kid, and drilled some wells in Pennsylvania. And then those people stuck around. We said, well, let's go to Texas. And I moved down to Abilene and started drilling deeper wells down there. And it was a great experience for a young guy. I mean, a completely foreign land, and really made some great lifelong friends there as well. The guy that pumped our wells, Bob, he used to be an air traffic controller, and he had built his own plane out of the scrapyard at his little hobby. He's a kind of hobbyist. At his little strip that all of it he and his friends used. And he had built this plane, and he stretched canvas over it and then pipe doped it. And that was the skin. And we'd go flying in Bob's plane and buzz cows. I remember one time we're up in his plane, and I'm like, Bob, the cars are going faster than us on the highway. He goes, yeah, I can't keep up. But it was a great experience. And then unfortunately, a downturn hit. And now we still have booms and busts, but the cycle is kind of like a sine curve, up, down. Beginning of this year, prices were really bad, and it looked kind of rough. Now they're really high because of the Iran war. So that's kind of typical, and businesses in the oil business are built that way to kind of withstand that. And we went into a downturn, and it lasted years. Man, this is in the 80s, and young guy, you're thinking, I got to do something. This is not going to work. And I started getting, I moved back to Pittsburgh, kind of waited out. And a friend of mine made commercials, and he started hiring me to run the set on his commercials. And I was making, $400 or $500 a day at the time. It's like, wow, this is really great. And even more sometimes. And I got in my head, I could do this, but I could do movies instead. So and I've always had an interest in film. I even went to UCLA Film School for a semester, a summer when I was a younger guy. And anyways, I applied to NYU and sent a movie I'd made at UCLA, and I got into their graduate program. And it was a 3-year program, but then you had to make a senior project film, and that took forever. So it was a big time commitment, and leaving private industry, especially to go to school, it was hard. It was a hard decision. So I moved to New York, lived up on the Upper West Side for a while, and to help pay for school, I became an RA at the NYU dorms, which was crazy. I mean, that was just crazy. It was, there's some tragedies too. It's a couple bad occurrences with the student body at the time. It was tough, but it was also a lot of fun. One night it was Halloween, and I'm in charge. I don't know, it was a 20-story building in the Village, and on 10th Street, and I was on duty during Halloween, and someone pulled the fire alarm, so I had to evacuate the entire building. And I don't know how many students there were, but we're all out in the middle of the night, Halloween night, Greenwich Village, and all of a sudden a girl starts having a seizure. And I don't know what to do, so I yell for someone to go to my room and get a blanket, which, by the way, I never got back. And, and I was kind of broke at the time, so it mattered.
Yeah.
And anyways, so we're dealing with this, and some calling in. All of a sudden, I hear this, coming through. And the crowd's parting, and I'm like, it's got to be, is the ambulance coming? It's not authoritative, or the police maybe. And it was Batman. And it was some dude dressed up like Batman, like really convincing Batman suit. And can I be of assistance, sir? And I'm like, no, Batman, I got it handled. It goes very well. And he just took off running with a cape. And I'm like, okay, I'm in New York. This makes sense.
Right, yeah. Checks the box.
Yeah. And, but, went through film school, and it was, it's a good film school. It's, well known. And it'd be crazy, you'd be at a class and you'd walk in and Al Pacino's in class with you and 10 kids, or, a lot of directors came through. Everybody, Spike Lee was over a lot because he had gone to NYU, and just kind of a who's who of the film industry would come in. Jeffrey Katzenberg, from Disney, and then what do you call it with Spielberg, SKG, I think it was. And anyways, so you think it's gonna be like, oh man, I got it made. You don't have it made. And this is, if any kids are listening, it gets really tough, because that self-supporting system of school, especially in the arts, once you get out, it changes, and the real world is different, and it gets really, really hard. So I kicked around in the movie business for a while, and I was writing, and I get paid a little to do that. I made a film. It went to Sundance, and that felt good for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was at Sundance with the producer who became a really exceptionally well-regarded producer, Ted Hope, for independence, kind of the forefront of the whole New York independent movement. We became friends, and we were trying to get a script I had written about the oil business made. And so we all went to Sundance. I had this little feature, and a guy, Ed, he made Brothers McMillan. He became a kind of a big actor for a while, and a director. Geez, now I forget his last name. Anyways, we're there, and Robert Redford had loved his movie, so we're at this bar at Sundance, and Robert Redford comes, and again the crowd's part, and he wants to meet this guy, and he ended up winning Sundance that year. So it kind of worked for some people like that, but so it was really tough. And I really wanted to make some money after a long time of trying to get it going. So I ended up thinking, I started a rental company. I was originally started as kind of for grip and lighting gear in Pittsburgh, which is a big movie hub. Make a lot of movies in Pittsburgh. It's a little slow right now. A lot of commercial get made there. Series get made there, streaming. And started that up and started renting equipment out and cameras, and then we'd grow to be pretty big. And I missed the oil business. I just didn't want to, I wanted to get back in it. And I got back in it. It was 2008, and it went to hell. And that's the book. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where the book then starts off, is in that point in your life. And I appreciate you filling some of those gaps, because those were part of the stories that I was wondering. As I'm reading it, and you piece some things together. By the way, you tell the story so great. You hear about some of those past experiences you had. Whether it was in Texas or with the the film company and whatever else, the rental company and everything else. And I already recommended your book in the beginning, and I'll say it again. Definitely, everybody pick it up, because it's a great read. And having read it, I know for a fact there was so many things that you had to persevere through, to overcome. I mean, it was like it was like reading you getting punched in the face just over and over and over again. I mean, from bad and tough business partner situations that you had to navigate through, to the financing and working with the bank loan officer, and just figuring all that out, facilitating getting your equipment to and from facilities and getting it fixed. I won't give any spoilers, but getting the high of starting in Reno, Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden, you need to just kidding. We need to go get this piece of equipment fixed up.
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh. So I guess where my mind started going was to ask you, like, what kept you moving forward? And what was it where did this never give up spirit come from?
I think it's kind of an innate part of entrepreneurialism, and it's I don't think I'm any different. Certainly not like the success the Silicon Valley guys have had, Alex Karp now, or, any of them, Musk, or, the what do you call it, from Apple, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs,
Any of them, I think they all did it. I just saw something online where they showed where NVIDIA started, Apple, all the different Google is always a garage or some ranch house or a strip plaza, dump, and it just, you just can't. you can't stop, and also I had a lot on the line. I just, leveraged absolutely everything. And, I had my daughters, Maria and Elena, who go to school here, were just infants, and we're living down in Pittsburgh, and it was like, if this fails, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And so it just had to keep going. And I always could see that it was there. It was a matter of getting there. And so it was never just as hopeless. It was always, it's kind of there. But, a guy pulling a knife on you in a trailer, not expected.
Definitely not.
Another guy disabling your trucks. Another guy, not giving away much, but, sleeping in, because it's always remote, sleeping in the parking lots of, state police barracks.
Figuring out how to drive these trucks.
Yeah. You're afraid that you're going to get shot or disappeared. And it was just one thing after another. But through it, I made some amazing friendships. And what I discovered is, people want to help. And the student body that ever think, I'm going to go out there, you can reach out to people, and a lot of times they will want to help you. I've had a lot, and I went through this. I wrote about this section of the book. I was actually going to take it into 2015, where other people stepped up to help me, and some Erie residents, really good people wanted to help, and though I cut it off at 2009, it was just too long, and it made sense in the story, but people will help, but. You got to be sensible about it. You got to know your limitations, and but you keep going, and
And it seems
trying.
like, I mean, what a rock and a saint your wife, by the way. The amount of times you reference her in the story.
Do you know Mary? Mary is my daughters just wrote her a Mother's Day card, and my one daughter called her enigmatic, and it's really true. She just doesn't care about it. Doesn't care if Mother's Day, a gift to her is to throw out something in the house that's in the way. It's not buying her anything, and she just walks to her own beat, and she's not doesn't really want anything other than happiness, and for her, thankfully at the time, happiness didn't cost much money, so that worked out for us, but. She's a true spirit, and she's a great lady. Yeah,
just the amount of times in the book I would read. And then Mary would say, make sure you just get out there and get the job done. We're good here. We're taking care of this. Well, the doors are locked. The baby monitors are on. All those things. Yeah.
Well, if you're going to go in the military, marry a man or a woman that was whose parents were in the military, and because you're used to the absences. That if you're going to go into business, maybe marry, someone whose parents ran a business, and then you sort of have that understanding of how it is, and
it's a good bit of advice right there.
It's make sure if this is what you're thinking about, the other person has been exposed to it, and because if they're not, it doesn't. I'm not saying it's a crucial element, but if they're not. It could come as a real surprise,
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, speaking family here in this context, your business, nowhere near does my life, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have the same level of stresses you were managing during this memoir take place. Yeah. But my question for you is, what advice do you have for people on how to manage stresses? Like, how did you balance the responsibilities of being a father, a husband, running this business? And obviously, I'm sure, as you said, sometimes you were absent for a period and you'd be back, but. Just in regards to stresses, what advice do you have for people on that?
I think the best thing to do is don't leave anything on the table. Don't leave it untended. You'll feel a lot better even doing your homework. Do your homework, guys, because you'll be able to sleep better and not worry about it. So address issues immediately and also try to compartmentalize. And if you can put something away to put something else in its place, or you got a moment to spend time with your kids or your wife or your family, do it, but you have to make sure you're keeping up. And if you're not keeping up, it'll affect you. Yeah. I just got back from Wyoming last night, and we were on a frack job, and there's a lot of moving pieces. There's an enormous amount of equipment. We're 25 miles from a blacktop road where we're working, and there's probably 50 trucks, working in tandem, and we had something fail, and it was a startup. And I knew the guys that were at a company from before, and they wanted to start their own. This is one of their first things. I said, sure, we'll try out. Well, their product failed, and we showed them what was happening, and I thought they should have got someone out there immediately, and they didn't. They said, well, can you UPS it to us? And I thought, I got kind of a long-winded, but the important thing is you can't do stuff like that. You gotta, if you're gonna do it, you got to do it. You got to go all in. So, yeah.
Sounds like some of those stresses then are when you're half-hearted, one foot in, one foot out, double-minded.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah.
I mean, read about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, the Hewlett and Packard guys, all those, or any, Ted Turner just died. Read about Ted Turner starting CNN and sleeping on tables. And, it's... that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then it gets maybe better.
Maybe.
But maybe not.
But the dream is what keeps you going, right?
Well, I got to tell you, too. I mean, I hired a consulting group, really smart guys to help me out, and I kept them for 1 month, and they told me, you should file for bankruptcy.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was like, no.
Yeah.
This is horrible advice. I'm still friends with one of them. I see him around.
Yeah.
But horrible advice. And this is like Ivy League guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, it's not a stigma anymore. No. It maybe get past it. But you can't. You could flirt with it. I mean, I'm reading about Ted Turner right now starting CNN, always on the edge. But he reaches out to John Malone, the great, the guy who built out really cable in America, was at the forefront of it. And again, people, you work through it. You have to keep moving yourself forward, Yeah. And then some things happen to people. I don't want to suggest it's the end of life. No, it's not. But you do what you can to avoid that.
Yeah, well, your book definitely exemplifies that spirit right there. I tell you what. Now, out of all the I read a lot of different challenges and moments that seemed like we were at the climax of the story, but we weren't yet. There was another climax. There was another.
It kept rolling.
It kept rolling.
Yeah.
For specifically with the memoir, as listeners, will be able to have a chance to read. Was there a certain challenge in that book that, when you reflect back on those times, that was the most difficult moment to try to get through?
I hear an overused word, cathartic. No, I kind of enjoyed, working through it. And I write articles and put them out. And I always thought this would be a good story. So I started assembling notes early on and waited for the time to write it. And truthfully, I wrote a lot of it at the prep pool.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter Maria is a swimmer, and she would take power classes with Greg
Sarbeck,
yeah.
Yeah, I know Greg.
Yeah. And great guy. And so I would sit up there. And so for me, having had a background in film, it wasn't the writing it. It was okay, what do I do when it's done? That's when it's going to get really horrible. Because, you make a film, people can't get distribution deals, or, this happens, that happens, they can't raise the money. And that was the fear. And the odd thing is, I got to give a copy of this to Greg, and I don't know if he'll read it, but maybe it's a stupid thank you. But I would sit next to a guy that's too bad that Erie lost him, John Persinger. And John went to Harvard, and then swam for Harvard, and then Notre Dame Law School. And we became friends, and John was going to write a book about the EDC when he was involved in it. And he also ran for mayor. He didn't win, but he was going to write a book, and I'm like, I don't know who to take this to. I had an agent when I was in the film industry, but I got a hold of her, and she's like, I've been out. I hadn't talked to her in years. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know where to take it. And so John said, listen, I was going to write this book, and you should call this guy. I'll make an introduction. And he was an agent in the D.C. area, and he does all the swamp books, like the Jim Comey tell-all, this politician, that politician, all that kind of stuff. But he's done really well at it. And so he got me in touch, and the guy read the book, And I've also discovered something else as a quick aside. The guys from the Ivy kind of run the planet. I just want to say that. You know what I mean? They start out at like Philip Exeter Academy, and then they go to, automatically they get into Harvard or Yale or whatever. And so it was a couple of Ivy League guys that formed a friendship, and they said, "Hey, can you read this dummy from Pitts, and read his book?" And he did, and he said, "Hey, I can find a place for this." So he reached out to a publisher that has this publishing group. It's a small independent, but they have a deal with Simon & Schuster. The guy used to run a part of Simon & Schuster, and his dad was a big publisher in the day. And so his company has a number of labels, and unfortunately, he has a conservative label. And unfortunately, because energy has become polarized, politically polarized, which is so dumb. I'm an oil and gas guy, but I'm an all of the above guy. What works, use it. We're going to need it. So open up to that. And but it's politicized, and so we had to go to a conservative sort of publisher to do it. And it's not all that he does. He does all sorts. He has another thing that does true crime, which is really big now. And so he has a number of different ones. But so Post Hill did this with Simon & Schuster, and then released it, and then the next big thing, it's like, oh, hold it. So you're counting on me to sell it? And so they gave me this publicist, and she's been good about getting it out there. So I don't know how it works out.
Yeah, that's such a cool story, even to hear the back end of how that came to be. Yeah,
it's really hard. You can write books. And there's always an avenue towards self-publishing, and that's a viable alternative you could put on Amazon. 80% of all book sales go through Amazon. I'm not sure with the. I know this was at Barnes and Noble. I saw it in the Erie store. I don't know. Hopefully they keep running it, but it's. I don't know. Who knows how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll make any money. I'll put it that way. So maybe I will. I don't know.
I tell you what, it's pretty amazing though, and it must be a pretty cool, experience for you to be able to see that. And I would imagine too, when you were writing the book, whether you're at the prep pool or wherever you were, writing it, it's probably very self-reflective too. Would you agree?
Yeah.
What'd you learn about yourself, as you were coming back with these stories and everything?
You maybe slow down. Think things through a little better. Don't start a frack company when the planet is melting down financially. But you just kind of, you look at. It gives you a chance to look back at what worked and what didn't work, and I did that, but. This is where I've done 3 startups. One was the Grip and Lighting Company, and then Reliance, and then really the last one I did was starting the oil and gas company up, and I really like that. I'm getting a kick out of it. As a service company, fracking wells for other people. You got to have it's a little corny, but it's true. A service heart. You have to be somebody if you're going to start a service company that. Takes on your your customers' problems. You have to do that to be successful. You have to do that, and we get a little older, sort of have your own problems too, and so you get overwhelmed with problems. But I wanted to get this going because that's the geology side of what I had done, and so we're drilling out there now, and they're fun, they're tactical, they're wells the size of Marcellus wells, the same thing really, out, down, and then out a couple miles. And it's interesting, and you're working with all these engineers and it's a startup all over again. It's, this one's sort of past that now, but you're always in growth mode, or I am, I'm not so interested in how much money am we making. I'm always thinking, well, how much can we grow this? And that's really for me kind of the fun of it. And but it's just you're around just great people. I was telling you that I was sleeping in a man camp this year because we had a problem on a well, and I couldn't get home. And so fortunately, Mary's like, no problem, and the kids are great, Marie and Elaine, at a man camp, you're not really, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm not running in the shower every day. And so I find out I have Lyme disease, and I probably picked it up out there because I never saw it.
Yeah.
And but anyway, it's funny. I'm living in a trailer, and at the other end are the mud logging guys, and one of them was General Petraeus's, if you remember him from a couple of years back, was his bodyguard. Oh, wow. And you just meet these people. It's like, where'd you come from? And how'd you end up here? But it's really interesting group of people. One of the guys that works for us used to play guitar for Chris Stapleton.
Oh, wow.
And a number of country music. Then he wasn't making any money, kind of like me, and I started fracking. I love it, and he started fracking too. So he kind of runs the field for us. But yeah, you come across all sorts.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a lot of different opportunities and things come your way. People you meet. It sounds like a great time.
We're fracking a job, and some sort of world champion kickboxer was in the van. I'm like, who's this guy? But he was like the money for some promoter who was in the van this years ago, and I'm like, well, sorry, I don't know who you are, but you convinced me. If you say you're the world champion, I'm buying it.
As soon as you're talking about the van, I'm picturing from your memoir, you sitting in the van and the charts, and it's on a graph, and some of the technical glitches you had in the beginning.
Yeah, I kind of got shafted by, startups are funny because if it's good. If you work in the industry first, you know who the guys are, the girls are, who you want to work with. But if you come in blind like I did with Reliance, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you're going to find sort of the worst guys first. And I seem to be able to do that anyway.
The most easily accessible.
Yeah. The guys that say yes right away, don't use them. And that's kind of a typical part of it. You got to work through it.
So for somebody listening to this episode and hearing the stories and having a good laugh and really listening to some of the advice you have, somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to start their own company, maybe they're young and out of school, or maybe they've been working somewhere for 10, 15 years, got some experience, and they're ready to go venture on their own.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for that person?
Well, I'd say make sure the problem with startups is funding. Make sure you're well funded, and then add 50%. Absolutely make sure you're well funded all the way. You've looked at everything, every conceivable outcome or problem you might foresee, and then just add 50% because it's always going to be a money issue. Make sure you do it with good people. If you take on partners, make sure you want to have partners, because I have found that business is easy, but people are hard. And so a lot of times things fail because it wasn't the right mix of people. I would say, I don't know if, I believe in a good collegial environment, but if you think that it's better, do it yourself. And I would say that's one thing. I would say, as stupid as it is, and this is no lesson for anybody, but pay attention in school. I'm also not a believer that college is right for everybody. Some of the smartest people I have ever met, that guy Ken in the book that came through for me, that wrestled the bear, actually did wrestle it. And he called me up after he read the book. He goes, he's like his third book I ever read. He goes, well, actually second. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. I go, that's all? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, I read a paperback once. And I'm like, well, that counts. He goes, no, they don't count. But Ken was probably one of the smartest people I ever met. And never went to college. I also met a driller recently, Louis, just a phenomenal driller. And Louis never went to college. He's a really good hockey player from Colorado, and phenomenal. But Louis has some, I don't know what it is, but he started when he was 17 years old. And generally, what you learn early on, you learn the best because you're paying it. Your brain has the room. Yeah. You get older, you don't have room anymore. And anyways, it's funny how all the engineers will stop and ask Louis what he thinks. And anyways, but he also, here's a guy, never went to college, and Louis makes close to $500,000 a year as a drill site supervisor. And what's one thing about the oil industry, people can make a lot of money in it. But never went to, so I'm not so if I'm talking to kids, I'm not going to be saying, oh, you got to go to a really great school.
Yeah.
No, you got to follow your heart, but as long as it makes sense. And if it's required, I think you should do it. And if it's not, I don't think you should. I think, my daughters are looking at being engineers, but they're good in math so I think if I was given, I don't know what advice I would give. I guess I would say, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live?
Yeah.
And are you pursuing the major that's going to get you there? Or how important is that to you? Identify. But it's really, the system is so fair. It's like Mark Twain said, we should work backwards. Start out at old age because you know so much more.
Right.
Why do you have to learn this, when you're young? So it's really crazy that you're asking a 17-year-old, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? I mean, that's really tough. Yeah. Some know, and some don't,
Right.
And but I think you should look at who you are, be honest with yourself, talk to your parents about who you are, and then try to start thinking, what should I do to, that would fulfill that.
Yeah. Well, and as you think about your own life, and one of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about today too is, what's your definition of success, and how has that changed over the years from maybe when you started Reliance and where you're at today? What does that look like for you?
I think I think success is, are you happy? And I would say that there's you could have a high-powered attorney not as successful as the guy carrying his garbage out, because the guy carrying his garbage might be living a more enjoyable life.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's it's kind of another kind of corny thing, but I think if money doesn't mean everything to everybody, I think on the entrepreneurial side, I don't think about money so much as I just enjoy it, and you think more about that. How can we grow this, or what can we do differently? How can we solve this problem? I find that's probably the most enjoyable part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't work in an industry like the financial services where it's kind of measured by money sometimes.
Sure.
But I work in an industry where it's measured by barrels. So
Yeah,
I guess
right.
it's probably the same.
Yeah.
Because you need money to make barrels. So,
Right.
But I think it's what makes you happy, and but also you got to be honest with yourself. Having gone through film school and then the film industry, it's really tough, and it's a really hard business. And if you go into something where employment isn't really an outcome after college, make sure you're prepared for it, because you are gonna have to maybe wait tables, or you're gonna have to do all that stuff. I mean, was it Bruce Willis used to wear a chicken outfit, trying to sell chicken patties, or one of those guys? Maybe it wasn't him.
Yeah.
But it's what it is, or maybe that was Brad Pitt. Maybe I think that was him. But it's really hard, and if you go into something though, and you're doing it only because of a job, I just pause for a minute and say, well, hold it. Is there another way? And but it depends on your personality. Maybe that some kind of security is what's important to you, but it's unfair that a young kid has to make that determination so early. And maybe it's somebody is telling him that, an authority figure, which makes great sense. I would never argue that, but I think you sort of have to kind of look at it and think about it. But listen, I'm the poster child for making mid-term switches, like from sitting drilling rigs in Texas to NYU,
right?
And so life is long enough. You can change. You can make changes.
Yeah, certainly. That's probably the best thing to be able to say there is it's not a final decision, right? When you're 17, 20, 25. I mean, there's plenty of time down the runway to make those pivots.
Having children is a final decision.
Yeah.
With your 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a final decision. But listen, my dad and mom had 7, and, they worked in the construction business, gave an oil well try, and later in life they ran a guy's crab fishing boat off of the Washington coast. So there's always time for some flexibility.
That's right. Yeah, there certainly is.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, winding down on this episode of the podcast, I have one more question for you to throw your way. It's a fun one. I ask all the alumni this question to end the episode, so it's always fun to see different answers and whatnot. But Dan, if you could go back in time to 1979, speak at your prep graduation, but knowing what you know now in life, what advice would you give to your classmates at that time?
What would I say? Probably what we just covered. I'd say, I watched, I always forget names. The actor, the comedic actor, Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And he was giving a kind of a commencement speech. I don't know where it was. But he's talking about take a chance. If this is something you want to do, take a chance. And he talked about his dad was an accountant. And his dad thought that he should be an accountant because he would forever have employment as an accountant. But he was miserable. He didn't enjoy it. And then he got laid off and couldn't find work. And so he had done something he didn't want to do because it would offer something that he thought he needed, and ultimately, kind of failed on both sides. Not failed, but and I don't know if that's why Jim Carrey did what he did, but he did it really well. And but I would say also, there's got to be some measure to that. You got to know who you are a little bit. And, are you a prodigy? There's very few prodigies. And even, I would say the best filmmakers are not making films. The best writers aren't necessarily writing books. And it's just, life gets in the way, And so, it's, you got to be honest with yourself. And if it's not working, find a way to change it. Don't live with it. Find a way to change it, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it. Be around people that support you. And that ask how you're doing and actually are curious.
Right.
Pick a spouse. I got lucky. I picked a girl that I started dating in high school, and and she stood by for really tough times and supportive. Even now, I'll say I'm doing this. I'll say okay. She's getting used to it, or she'll say the same, and I'll be like, yeah, great. Don't get in each other's way. You gotta live. Your own life, and be around people who accept that. But I don't know that I answered your question. But
no, you definitely did, and I think it's a great way to end this episode, especially as we were talking about your memoir through this book, because I think what your answer was now exemplifies the story that I got out of your memoir, which is, you take a chance and you figure things out and you just keep working and you keep your eyes fixed on the finish line.
Yeah, and the final thought, especially for young kids, if you're going through hell, keep going. I say that to my daughters when they're studying. Just don't stop. Keep walking.
That's right.
And you will eventually find the edge, and you'll pull yourself out of it. And if things are just overwhelming and really trying, keep going. Just keep going. You'll get through it. You'll get through it. You really will. You really will.
It's hard when you're in it.
Yeah.
But if you can keep that focus, keep that faith that you're going to see the other side of it, you'll make it.
And you will. You always will.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, this has been a lot of fun. I just want to thank you. I know the listeners who have been tuning in for this episode, they probably got a lot of nice little wisdom nuggets from you, some fun laughs through your stories and whatnot. But just want to say thank you for coming on the episode today, and I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. And Jimmy, thank you. I've been doing the publicist get me all these interviews, and you get on with these people, and none of them read the book, and they have these shows, and thank you. Read the book. Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes for a better podcast.
Well, I enjoyed it just as much, and I was looking forward to talking to you even more so because I did read the book. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, you did your work. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks again, Dan.
Okay. Thanks, Jimmy.